This afternoon, Ghana Nurses and Midwives Association threatened strike. On the international front, at least 16 Palestinians in Gaza shot dead by Israeli troops in bloody clashes ahead of the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. We've got the details of these stories for you here on Midday Live, including news from the world of sports and entertainment. As always, our bulletin is streaming live all across the world on 3news.com and TV3 Ghana on Facebook. You could also watch us on DSTV channel 279. On to our very first story this afternoon. 12 people have been confirmed dead in an accident at Akwetia Krom in the Ahafo South district of the Ashanti region on the Kumasi-Chinania highway. The midnight accident reportedly happened a few kilometers from the spot where dancehall artist Ebony Rains lost her life through a similar accident. A Ford minibus with registration number AS7257-15 crashed head-on with a Benz cargo truck with registration number GR2624/14 heading to Doma Ahenkro from Kumasi. The head-on collision resulted in the death of passengers, mostly in the Ford vehicle. The driver of the Ford also died in the crash. On to some other news. Now, the wrongful parking of vehicles is increasing by the day. Richard Bright Addo was at some location in Accra and reports some motorists no longer regard road safety regulations.
The news team's first stop was close to churches. I am standing just outside one of the popular churches at Circle. And as I speak, church service is ongoing, but the owners have left their vehicles on the shoulders of the road. Clearly, they care less about their action or the dangers they cause to other road users. The Royal House Chapel has a huge membership base, and this has been the situation every Sunday, but police officers contracted to direct traffic here were quick to insist the church compound is flooded, hence the directive to park indiscriminately. These taxis confirmed this is what they do daily, as they are sure to get passengers here.
We park here because of the church. This is where we get our passengers. The police even allow us to park here.
Oh, we shouldn't park road because it's Sundays now. Sorry for no. Or I'm try some maybe cars now. They won't pay some more stations.
We don't park on the road. The church members do not want to walk to the lorry stations, so we wait here for them. The police don't allow us to park here on weekdays, but they are flexible on Sundays.
The situation was similar at the Holy Family Catholic Church at Mataheko, but you will not be far from right when you conclude that Christians who are supposed to be obedient of the laws of the country are rather doing the opposite. The situation was worse on some major roads. Vehicle owners had turned the median and the shoulder of the road to virtually their permanent parking place. At Reeds Junction, a suburb of Medina, residents indicated the vehicles in the median were for sale, but owners have refused to relocate despite persistent calls. It appears this has been the norm on Sundays. Perhaps the Motor Traffic Department and the various assemblies may have to redirect their energies to checking the creeping menace to avert accidents. Richard Bright Addo, TV3 News.
Let's turn to the health sector now, as Ghana recorded national HIV prevalence rates of 1.7% in 2017, a marginal increase in the 2016 rate of 1.61%. Per the 2017 Sentinel survey reports, both the Ashanti region and the Greater Accra regions recorded the highest prevalence with a rate of 3.2%, while the northern region had the lowest rate of 6%. There are currently 310,000 people living with HIV in Ghana. Of this population, 28,000 are between 0 and 14 years. This group of people also constitute 3,400 of the 19,000 new infections in 2017. HIV prevalence among pregnant women attending the antenatal clinic in the country is, however, on a downward trend. Now let's stay on this issue a little longer, as I'm joined in studio by Dr. Stephen A.C. Addo. He's the Program Manager, National AIDS and STI Control Program. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here on Midday Live.
Right, thank you. Good afternoon.
So, Dr. A.C. Addo, could you start off by just highlighting the key findings in this 2017 report?
Okay, right, thanks. As you said, the prevalence increased marginally from 1.61 to 1.67, rounding up 1.7. That is the national prevalence. But if you take the pregnant women, it dropped from 2.4 to 2.1. You notice that the children form a certain percentage of about 18% for new infections and then the deaths. We need to also relate that to the pregnancy, the HIV Sentinel survey. We also realized an increase from 1.1 to 1.5 of the ages 15 to 24. All right, 15 to 24.
Absolutely. And what do you think accounts for that trend in that age group?
I wanted to add that as in addition to all of this, we need to also relate it to the key population. We notice an increase also from 17 to about 18.1% amongst key populations, men who have sex with men specifically.
And that's what you refer to as key population?
Key population, men who have sex with men. But for female sex workers, around 7%.
Now, first of all, let's touch on the issue of the prevalence rate within the ages 15 to 24. What exactly do you think accounts for this upward trend, and how exactly is your organization addressing it?
Okay, I think we've come through a cycle where when we used to do a lot about prevention education, you know, it's in the past. At that time, these children were babies. I mean, now there's been a decline in this public awareness and the prevention education. And we need to go back to the basics. And as a program, we're working with the school health program to make sure that's part of their curriculum. Children who are in school at least reach with these programs. The other thing is to collaborate with NGOs, community-based organizations, to increase their prevention activities targeted at out-of-school youth. It's very important. Getting them in school is very important because then you can reach them with these, but those out of school is difficult. Apart from that, the current initiative to do routine offer of testing in health facilities means that anybody who comes to the facility, irrespective of your illness, will have HIV testing. Linked to that must be prevention education. So how to stay free of HIV is part of it. Very soon there will be a launching of champions for prevention, and they are going to lead also the process for general public to make sure that we minimize. If you check the data among key populations also, you notice that quite a young group, are people infected.
What's the age range?
Yeah, they are also, a lot of them below even 30 years, have infection. And we have targeted, activities towards them, also in the community. Because for them, compared to the general public, if you have to test, let's say, the general public once in a year or twice, you need to do about 3 times that for key population.
For that group.
Yeah.
And this, you categorize as key population, they operate most of the time. It's shelved and it's not too much in the open. So how exactly do you tackle this group? Because
they exist a lot in networks, and you reach them through another person. So we call something the snowballing. You contact them, one person, the person will lead you to the next. They form a lot of the groups. They have clubs, and they have hotspots. So hotspots are spots where they more like relate. Yeah, so through that you're able to reach them. Their parties and all the programs that they have. And so using one person, you reach out to other people. We also have some ICT methods, using SMS texting and all that, a short code, so that they can, call access health worker, key population.
Yeah. Key population.
Contact the healthcare worker if they have any questions or anything to be addressed as far as testing and HIV treatment is concerned.
How has this been? How have they been responding?
It's been piloted now. We hope that if it works well, we will be able to scale it up.
So that being said, in general, moving forward, what steps do we need to take?
Okay, so all of us,
what timelines?
Yes, all of us have to accept that because we've agreed to 1990 targets, by 2020, we should be able to roll out a huge number of people on treatment, and they should have viral suppression. If we do that, the risk of transmission to another person is minimal. But whilst we're putting people on treatment, which entry point is testing, which means that you should also accept testing. Every other person should be willing to accept testing. The testing is available in public health facilities free of charge. We expect that people also take the measures to prevent. So the ABCs are still relevant. Using condom. When we noticed in the last DHS, Demographic and Health Service, that condom utilization has declined among the young people. So we have to go back to the basics, teach people more, let them assess. We need to now even distribute more of these condoms in workplaces.
Educate people.
We educate people. We intend to reignite the workplace policy programs. And a lot of the workplaces had programs, and now they've all gone to sleep. So all that should help us. So we will complement the treatment component with prevention, because even with people on treatment, and we don't minimize the 19,000 or so new infections, we will not be able to achieve epidemic control, which target is less than 1,000.
And we're achieving this by? We
should achieve that by 2030, though, the epidemic control by 2030, ending AIDS. But for 2020, it's about the 1990 target. Yes, and now we know because of the new figures.
Yes.
It means that we have more work to do.
To be done.
And so the call to the public is for them to cooperate with us, accept testing. We'll be coming to them, the communities. For people on treatment, they should be in treatment. They should, adhere to their medications, and then accept viral load testing. We believe that with all those together, we should be able to, minimize the epidemic or reduce it.
Certainly. Grateful for your time. Dr. Stephen A.C. Adjo, he's the Programs Manager, National AIDS and STI Control Program. Thank you. On to some other news this afternoon. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association has threatened to embark on strike if government does not review its decision to withdraw some incentives due its members. Speaking at the launch of this year's International Nurses Day in Kumasi, President of the association, Dr. Kweku Asante-Krobia, tasked government to restore tax waivers on imported cars for members and prioritize the employment of graduate nurses and midwives.
President of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Kweku Asante-Krobia, warned of labour unrest should government go ahead with its intention to scrap some incentives due nurses and midwives and also delay or fail in delivering on promises made. Dr. Asante-Krobia blamed Ghana's failure to meet the MDG's target on health to inadequate resources. He tasked government to increase investment in health to enable the country meet the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal target. Head of nursing at KNUST, Dr. Victoria Bam, partly blamed the high mortality rate and upsurge in non-communicable diseases on low investment in the sector by government.
This low investment we see is deriving from issues or resulting in poor geographical access to health facilities, which in turn deters people from seeking care and resorting to unqualified persons for health care.
International Nurses Day is marked annually to recognize the significant role nurses and midwives play in health delivery.
Let's stay on this issue as our reporter Ibrahim Abubakar has been speaking with the president of the association, Dr. Kweku Asante-Krobia.
Doc, why are you kicking against the decision by Ghana Health Service to deduct 1% of the basic salary of nurses and midwives?
Well, it is not, first of all, their prerogative to do so, because they have an unfulfilled obligation that they hold for us with regards to the payment of health bills for all nurses and midwives employed by them. You know, Ghana Health Service is the largest health sector employment agency. And so for them to go that level without recourse to broad discussion on the subject matter, we thought it was untenable and we will not accept it. The greatest reason that we have, and the strongest, is that with our conditions of service, we are entitled to the waiver of 50% of health care costs that the NHIS does not cover. This Ghana Health Service, as the largest health sector employment agency, has failed to pay their employees. And now you are telling us, if you are failing in this obligation, you want nurses and midwives to contribute 1% of their basic salary for you to establish health insurance for them. This is what we think is not in good taste, and so we won't accept.
We'll stay on that and bring you more in subsequent bulletins. Now, the Mental Health Authority is yet to receive its 2018 budgetary allocation. In an exclusive interview with Peter Kwao Adato, Dr. Akwesi Osei is of the view government is no longer interested in mental health care, daring the Health Ministry to prove him wrong.
According to the Mental Health Authority, 41% of Ghana's population suffer from mental health distress and depression. According to Dr. Akwesi Osei, records from the outpatient departments of the Accra, Pantang and Ankafo psychiatric hospitals showed over 100,000 annual OPD attendance, with lots of cases going unreported. The situation, he fears, could worsen per the current growing disinterest in the sector.
The point is that why would government not give anything? Because every year we make budgetary allocation. Of course, the budget that we present is not what the government approves. The government will approve something much lower. But even that same budget that the government approves, why has the government not given us? So the first remains that, is anybody interested enough? I challenge the government, I challenge the ministry that they are not interested. If they are interested, let them prove me wrong.
He regretted the mental health doctor-patient ratio of 1:1.7 million in Ghana compared to 1:1 million in Nigeria and 1:50,000 in Kenya.
And we should not look at somebody who we are better than and say we are fine, that will be complacency. We should look at where we are potentially capable of attaining or achieving. And if you do that, we recognize that what we have is not good enough. A country of about 30 million population now, 29, 30 million, we have only 24 psychiatrists, meaning that one psychiatrist is taking care of about 1.4 million Ghanaians. That's not good enough.
Dr. Osei attributed the surge in crime related to mentally challenged persons to societal attitude towards people who suffer from mental illness.
We are in May, getting to about half of the year, we have not had a single person released by the central government. So the psychiatric hospitals, how do they fit? And they have patients there. So no attention. We don't have a mental health board. Why has a mental health board not been formed? Is this certainly evidence of further neglect by the authorities? Nobody seems to be interested.
Dr. Akwesi Osei said the Mental Health Authority is under-resourced and survives mainly through benevolence. Mental health patients, he said, often have to depend on the open market for drugs, as the facilities usually run short, resulting in patients having to go without medication.
You're watching Midday Live. Let's now take a look at our MTN Vigil reports this afternoon as our citizen journalist Aaron Anika reports on the need for a footbridge or pedestrian crossing on the Kaswa Highway.
This is the Kaswa New Interchange, but it's unfortunate there is no pedestrian crossover or a footbridge. No incident has yet been recorded, but we ask the various authorities to take proactive measures. There are two old men who are about to cross the road and they are in the middle of the road. A car can feel a brake, so we ask various authorities to construct the footbridge for the people of Kaswa. This is your citizen journalist, Aaron Anika.
Remember, Remember, you can also send your video report via WhatsApp number 055-1433-044. That's 055-1433-044. We've got some more news on Midday Live coming up for you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back to Midday Live. Let's turn to some business news this afternoon. Ghana's maiden 30-year bond will be channeled into reducing the country's rising housing deficit. This will also be achieved through the provision of mortgages and the completion of the government's affordable housing projects. There is more in the following report.
The 30-year bond, a maiden one to be issued by Ghana, attracted $1 billion from investors. The country is expected to pay back investors at a rate of 8.62%. The 30-year bond issue is to support the mortgage industry. Currently, the country housing deficit is estimated at 1.7 million. Some industry watchers believe the figure will escalate to 2 million by next year. Already, the Works and Housing Ministry has ditched an earlier plan of establishing a housing bank to meet the mortgage needs of majority of Ghanaians. It now expects the established commercial banks to undertake mortgages. Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta is confident investments in other critical sectors with the bond proceeds should drive employment creation.
Now, a former first deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, Millicent Kojo Na, has urged banks to strategize to meet the December 2018 deadline for the recapitalization. According to him, the 400 million cedis minimum capital will enable them withstand internal and external shocks, finance big-ticket transactions, and be the enablers of economic growth.
Since the announcement, analysts and industry players have expressed mixed opinions. While some worry about wiping out of local players who are already in the minority when it comes to total assets, others believe that the economy needs bigger banks, and if locals cannot match up, they have to exit. In an exclusive interview with TV3, a former first deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, Millicent Kojo Na, urged banks to strategize to meet the recapitalization deadline, since it will enable them withstand internal and external shocks, finance big-ticket transactions, and be the enablers of economic growth.
It is important that as we go about increasing capacity in terms of financial resources, we need to work at it assiduously and ensure that we even go beyond what the central bank is asking for, because the central bank is just asking for a floor. But we can go above this floor to enable us do more business, to create more job opportunities, to create capacity to contribute to growth in the economy.
He is of the firm belief that the policies being implemented by the central bank to strengthen and modernize the financial sector will yield expected results.
Most of them do not have the financial muscle. Because you see, when you establish a letters of credit, okay, and you expect a correspondent bank to confirm this letter of credit, you must have the requisite amount in your account, and the confirming bank would have to block those funds. So if you don't have the financial muscle, you will not be able to assess your clientele who are either importing or exporting commodities.
Governor of the Central Bank has indicated that 5 banks have met the new minimum capital requirement of 400 million Ghana cedis even before the deadline.
And that's all the business news we've got for you this afternoon. Visit our website, 3news.com, for some more news from the world of business. But in some other stories this afternoon, the Kufuor Endowment Fund has been launched in Accra. The fund will be used to support the completion of the Kufuor Center for Leadership and Governance at the University of Ghana, and also sustain the work of the foundation in carrying out its programs.
The fundraising dinner is in line with the 80 for 80 campaign, which seeks to raise 80 million cedis to commemorate the upcoming 80th birthday of the former president. Proceeds from the fundraising will go into the establishment of the Kufuor Endowment Fund, which will support the completion of the Kufuor Center for Leadership and Governance at the University of Ghana and also sustain the foundation in carrying out its programs in furtherance of the
formally launched the John Agyekum Kufuor Foundation Endowment Fund.
Patrons had the opportunity to experience the vision of former President John Kufuor and his post-presidency achievements being realized through the foundation. These include the Kufuor Scholars Program, which provides transformational leadership training and mentoring for young tertiary students, under which 34 scholars had been trained and mentored since its inception in 2016.
Mr. President will be 80 years this year. And for many Africans, they will be in their house with their grandchildren, with their children, their grandchildren, their family. But he decided to devote his time to help the younger generation of our dear country. Mr. President, we share in your cause, which must be championed by all, irrespective of your political background. Mr. President, you can count on some of us. We need to mentor the younger generation.
President Kufuor noted the foundation has kept his vision alive by developing good initiatives and implementing well-designed projects.
The individuals we're trying to help through the foundation will become like the yeast that would leaven the bread, so the bread would grow fat for the entire community to benefit it. And for us to sustain this, naturally, I'm doing what I can, but I see it not as just a short-term thing. It must be medium to long-term, and through that we'll transform our society.
Donations made towards the endowment fund include 200,000 cedis from NIB, 200,000 cedis from Fidelity Bank, 50,000 cedis from ADB, 20,000 from Kasapreku, among others.
Watching Midday Live. In some other news this afternoon, the first phase of the Malam drain construction, which was scheduled to be completed within 13 days, is 98% complete. Though the duration has elapsed by a day, engineers are working assiduously to make up for the period which was lost to the rains. Selam Amina visited the site and has come through with the following report.
The construction of the 500-meter drain, which was begun on April 30, is to be completed within 50 days. According to the project coordinators of Gama, residents who will be affected have been relocated and compensated. Portions of the Malam-Kaswa highway were closed to traffic.
This is the road that takes traffic off the N1 from La Paz to Malam and its environs. Due to the construction works, this particular part of the road had to be cut through for the laying of the culvert. Now that the first phase is nearing completion, what it means is that from the coming weeks, the next lane, which takes traffic from Kanesi to Kaswa and beyond, will be cut through to allow for the laying of the concrete culverts.
The 6 million Ghana cedi project is funded by the World Bank and forms part of the $150 million Gama Water and Sanitation project. The project, which is in 3 phases, is progressing steadily. The first phase was expected to be completed within 13 days, but 14 days on, it is 98% complete after a day was lost to the rains. Several hours were spent pumping rainwater from the drain. However, workers have defied the rain in order to complete within schedule. Emmanuel Klu is with the Ghana Highway Authority Material Division. He is optimistic the second phase would commence by Tuesday, May 15.
We are working vigorously to cover up for the last one day. With what we are doing now, by the close of the day, everything will be in place. Early tomorrow morning, we'll do the final compaction test. Then by Tuesday, we'll shift on to the second phase, which is phase 2.
Would this be one of similar projects which have ended up destroying roads after its completion?
The method we adopted was that we started backfilling to the culverts in layers, and every layer we make sure that it passed the test before we have reached up to this stage. So we are making sure that such a scenario should not occur, because it will be a problem for us as well as to the general public.
The double-cell drain being constructed is 4 times bigger than the existing drain.
These casted concrete culverts, with a width of 3.5 meters double and a height of 2.5 meters, which is approximately 7 feet 6 inches, is what is being used for the construction of the drain. When completed, it is expected to contain the volume of water that flows down to the Malam Junction. It is also expected to end the perennial flooding of this particular area that had claimed lives and properties. Stella Mamenya, TV3 News, Malam.
We'll keep an eye on the construction of the drain and bring you more on that subsequently. In other news, 3 persons have lost their lives while more than 1,500 residents in the Ashanti region have been displaced following 6 days of rainfall. About 152 buildings, including schools, have also been destroyed over the period. Here's reports by Benjamin Edu.
The heavy rains started last Monday. 2 persons lost their lives at Kwadaso and another person at Dichemso, both in Kumasi. The rains ripped off the roofs of some basic schools, churches and houses in the affected communities. Walls and structures at Kwadaso, Dichemso, Offenso Airport Roundabout area and Kumau collapsed, leaving scores of residents homeless. The rain also exposed the poor drainage in parts of the region. Some major roads were not spared. The Ashanti Regional Director of NADMO, Kwabena Century, requested the support of corporate organizations.
Best solution is to embark on demolition so that we might not have affected victims again. You know, that place is a wetland, that is a lowland, and he's putting up a storage burden. And I don't even know if the soil has been tested and the engineers are given the authority that the building should be continued. You know, he's now having about 4-story burden. We don't need to allow such things to go on.
He said some of the causes of disaster are human-induced, adding that a meeting with stakeholders would be convened to avert another disaster of such magnitude.
We've been educating them for almost 1.5 years now. It seems the education is not getting to the people's ears. A lot of people will be quitting this area, but when it gets up to the dry season, they will all come back and they will be affected and become a victim.
You're watching Midday Live all across the world. You're watching us on 3news.com. We've got some news from the world of sports coming up for you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back to Midday Live. On the international front this afternoon, at least 16 Palestinians in Gaza have been shot dead by Israeli troops in some of the bloodiest clashes for weeks. That's according to Palestinian officials. It comes ahead of the controversial opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, which has infuriated Palestinians. Here's the story and some more international news. An 8-year-old daughter survived the latest attack. Indonesia is the world's most populous Muslim-majority country. The archipelago, home to 260 million people, has seen a resurgence of Islamist militancy in recent months, but the scale of the attacks in Surabaya has raised fresh concerns about the potency of jihadist networks. Video footage of the latest attack on the police headquarters shows 2 motorbikes approaching a checkpoint just before the blast. 6 civilians and 4 police officers were injured. The young girl who survived had been wedged between her mother and father on a motorbike as they carried out the attack. CCTV footage shows her stumbling around after the blast. The Federation of Women Lawyers had wanted the section of the law to be declared unconstitutional and couples to be entitled to 50-50 arrangement. But presiding judge, Justice John Mativo, is quoted as saying, "A person cannot walk into a marriage and then walk out with more than what they deserve." Last week, the country's Supreme Court ruled it had no jurisdiction to hear a case between a divorced couple, where the woman wanted the ex-husband to pay her alimony. The court said that the issue was a family affair.
At least 16 Palestinians in Gaza have been shot dead by Israeli troops in some of the bloodiest clashes for weeks, Palestinian officials say. It comes ahead of the controversial opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, which has infuriated Palestinians. They see it as a clear U.S. backing for Israeli rule over the whole city, whose eastern part Palestinians lay claim to. Top U.S. officials, including President Donald Trump's daughter and her husband, will attend the event. Gaza's Islamist rulers, Hamas, have led mass protests in a great march of return for the past 6 weeks. Israel says demonstrators are trying to breach the border fence. The Hamas-run health ministry said a 14-year-old boy had been among those killed on Monday and 500 people had been injured. More than 50 Palestinians have been killed since the protests began. Thousands more have been wounded. The status of Jerusalem goes to the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem is not recognized internationally, and according to the 1993 Israel-Palestinian Peace Accords, the final status of Jerusalem is meant to be discussed in the latter stages of peace talks.
Visit our website 3news.com for some more international news. Next on Midday Live is entertainment news. Stay with us. Welcome back to Midday Live. In some entertainment news this afternoon, the late highlife musician Jewel Acker will be laid to rest on August 4 at his hometown, Axim, in the Western region. Dignitaries including former President John Dramani Mahama, key NDC politicians and musicians attended Jewel Acker's one-week celebration in Tema.
Friends and colleague musicians joined Jewel Kofi Acker's family to observe 1 week of his passing. Loyalists and key figures in the NDC were present to mourn the musician who composed their party anthem.
Anything that we give to him is documented because he's a human and we are also human. We don't want to support him without making any documentation. Not only the party, JDM office also have been helping. And we don't want to tell you to come to our office to look at the receipts.
What do you think will make him go out there and say that it's not happening?
At times when you are in a difficult positions, certain things do come around or about that you need to say certain things. You know, even after that comment, he was still coming to us.
While alive, Jewel described former President John Dramani Mahama as a bosom friend who cared for him in his difficult moment. John Mahama received a thunderous welcome at the event in appreciation of his goodwill. The former president, who had earlier donated an amount of 10,000 cedis, presented an additional 2,000 cedis to Jewel's family. Veteran musicians turned up in their numbers. Jewel Acker's funeral will take place in Accra on August 4, but will be interred at his hometown, Axim.
Well, may his soul rest in perfect peace. But in some other entertainment news this afternoon, have you ever wondered how acclaimed musician Shatta Wale might have looked like at age 1? Well, trader, politician and mother of award-winning singer Shatta Wale, Elsie Evelyn Agbavito Avemega, has been sharing how it was raising the musician.
Yeah, mama, soon you are gonna stop crying, you are gonna laugh. Be strong, mama, be strong. Mama may never go leave you alone.
How were you able to juggle between your role as a politician and you keeping your home and making sure you bring up your children very well?
It wasn't easy, but if you have God, you have everything. I'm a very smart woman. I do things on time, so taking care of them wasn't a problem for me. And as I'm sitting here, I can tell you that I've never even having a house girl before. I do everything myself with my children.
We are interested in what Shatta Wale was doing growing up. What was his role in the house?
Okay, Shatta Wale is the one who irons the siblings' dresses. He washes their canvas, and then at times I think he even joins us at the kitchen.
Who is a mother to you?
If they call you a mother, then you must know that you've done a lot for your children. Not that you've got pregnant and then you've brought forth. You must be supportive to your children, supportive in educating them. You teach them how to love God. You must always be a good listener to your children. A good mother never lets her children go hungry. That is what I've been doing to my children, so I know I am a good mother.
Yeah, mama, soon you are gonna stop crying, you are gonna laugh. Be strong, mama, be strong. Mama, me never go leave you alone.
I use the 10 commandments to teach them how to love. So, Shatawale is a good giver. Everybody that comes to visit us, when that person is going, leaving us, he'll quickly run to you. Have you given him something? Give him some money to take care. He is always very particular about that. And he gives a lot.
Beyond that, we also talk about how it feels to be the mother of Shatawale.
I feel proud and I feel honored. And I am happy to have a son like that. Very, very happy, and I'm proud of him.
When you walk out there, what do people tell you?
I went to Ablau. So when I got to the studio, the guy was looking at me. The way I was in jeans, I said, so you are Shatawale's mother. You look very young. I said, yes, I want a boyfriend. Then he laughed over it. And I thank Shatawale for making me proud like that.
Yeah, mama. Soon you are going to stop crying. You are going to laugh.
Oh, certainly a very proud mother there. Interesting to have known Shatawale will be ironing the clothes of his siblings. Well, nice to know how he was as a young boy. And on that note, we round up Midday Live this afternoon from the News Hub. Thanks so much for watching. Visit our website 3news.com for some more news. I'm Natalie Ford. Have a spectacular afternoon.